They say you can tell a predator by the way he looks at you. Aster Dane looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him alive. The internet called him dangerous, a manipulator, a monster who destroyed lives. But monsters don't ask permission before they breathe. They don't panic when thunder cracks. And they definitely don't crawl into your bed at midnight just to feel less alone. I didn't believe the headlines, not after I heard what he was really thinking. This is the story of how I fell in love with the man everyone told me to fear. Chapter 1: Alien's Point of View. The first time I woke up with Aster Dane in my bed, his arm was already around my waist. Thunder exploded outside. I jerked awake, pulse slamming in my throat, and found myself pressed against a chest that wasn't my own. The room was dark. Rain battered the windows. And there was a man in my bed who absolutely should not have been there. Aster Dane, the same Aster Dane from the headlines and the scandal. The famous music composer everyone said was dangerous. I froze. My brain screamed at me to move, to shove the alpha away, to get out of the bed immediately, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Aster was asleep, head tilted back against the headboard, breathing slow and steady, as if he belonged there. His wine-colored sweater was soft against my shoulder. His fingers rested loosely on the blanket near my hip. He looked exhausted, vulnerable, nothing like the monster the internet described. That made it worse somehow. I shifted carefully, trying to slide out from under his arm without waking him. The movement was too sharp. His eyes opened immediately, gray and unfocused in the dim light from the city skyline outside. We stared at each other for 3 long seconds. Then he let go like he'd been burned. Sorry. His voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. He stood up from the bed in one smooth motion, already backing toward the door. You look terrified. I shouldn't have. What are you doing in my room? I sat up, heart still racing. I will leave now. He didn't meet my eyes. It won't happen again. He was gone before I could say anything else. The door clicked shut. Footsteps retreated down the hall toward the other side of the loft. I sat there in the dark, listening to the storm, trying to make sense of what just happened. Aster Dane had been in my bed, holding me, and instead of looking predatory or manipulative or any of the things the articles claimed, he'd looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in months. I pressed my hands against my face and tried to slow my breathing. This was fine. It was a mistake. Aster said it wouldn't happen again, and I would make sure of it by locking my bedroom door from now on. Problem solved. Except 2 hours later, when the thunder started up again and I couldn't fall back asleep no matter how hard I tried, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my room. Slow, hesitant, then stopping right outside my door. I stared at the ceiling, barely breathing, and realized with creeping certainty that Aster had come back.
Chapter 2: Aster's Point of View. I couldn't go back to sleep after I left his room. I sat on my bed in the dark, hands shaking, trying to figure out what the hell I'd been thinking. The answer was simple. I hadn't been thinking at all. I'd heard the thunder, felt the panic claw its way up my throat, and my body made the decision before my brain could stop it. Walk to his door. Open it. Lie down next to him because for some godforsaken reason that was the only place the panic stopped. You're losing it, I said to the empty room. The storm kept going. Rain hammered the windows. I pressed my palms against my knees and forced myself to breathe slowly. But it didn't work. Nothing worked anymore except the one thing I absolutely could not do again. I lasted 40 minutes before I was back in the hallway outside his door. This time I didn't go in. I just stood there like an idiot, hand hovering over the doorknob, listening to him move around on the other side. He was awake, probably wondering if I was going to break in again. Probably already planning how to get the housing manager to move him far away from the dangerous alpha everyone warned him about. Leave, I whispered to myself. Just leave. I didn't leave. By morning, I'd managed maybe an hour of sleep. I heard voices in the shared kitchen around 8 and forced myself to get up and make an appearance before people started asking questions. I pulled on the same wine-colored sweater from yesterday and walked out. Elian was standing by the coffee maker talking to Maya, one of the other residency musicians. So the new guy climbed into your bed last night? Maya's voice carried down the hallway. That's insane, Elian. I froze just outside the kitchen doorway, out of sight. It was a mistake, Elian said quietly. He apologized. A mistake? He's been here 3 days and he's already breaking into your room at night. That's not normal. The door wasn't locked. That doesn't make it okay. Maya paused. Did you look him up yet? Asked Dane. My chest tightened. No, Elian said. I did. Last night after I saw him in the hallway. He's the composer from the Belmar scandal, the one accused of manipulating young Omega musicians through his mentorship foundation. Silence. Then Elian's voice, careful and flat. What foundation? The one that funded scholarships at Belmar. You were on scholarship there, right? Before everything collapsed? Yeah, Elian said slowly. I was. Then you know what I'm talking about. All those students lost their funding overnight when the scandal broke. Aster Dane was accused of using the foundation to get close to vulnerable Omega students. The internet tore him apart for months. No charges were ever filed, but the damage was done. The foundation shut down. Belmar lost half its donors. Students like you got caught in the fallout. Another pause. Longer this time. I lost everything because of that scandal, Elian said, and his voice was so quiet I barely heard it. My scholarship vanished. I couldn't afford tuition anymore. I ended up here because this residency was the only place I could get into that didn't require upfront payment. And now the guy responsible is sleeping in the room down the hall from you, Maya said. Actually, worse than that. He's sleeping in your bed. He said it wouldn't happen again. Do you believe him? I don't know what to believe. Well, I looked into it more. This building we are in, this artist residency, it only exists because Aster Dane donated the money to convert the warehouse years ago, back before the scandal. He funded the whole thing, which means he probably pulled strings to get a room here after everything fell apart. So he's hiding, Elian said. Or he's exactly what the internet said he was, and he's using this place to get close to people who can't afford to leave. I don't trust him, Elian said finally, and the words hit me like a fist to the chest. Good, Maya said. You shouldn't lock your door tonight, and if he tries anything again, you tell the housing manager immediately. People like him don't just stop. I heard footsteps. Maya was leaving the kitchen. I stepped back quickly, pressed myself against the wall, and waited until she passed before I moved again. Elian was still in there, alone, staring into his coffee like it held answers he couldn't find anywhere else. I should have walked away, gone back to my room, let him have his space. Instead, I stepped into the doorway. You're right not to trust me, I said. He spun around, coffee sloshing over the rim of his mug. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. I leaned against the door frame, kept my voice flat even though my chest felt like it was caving in. You don't trust me. Good. You shouldn't. Then why were you in my room last night? It was a mistake. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. We stared at each other across the kitchen. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, hair still messy from sleep. He also looked angry, which was better than terrified. I could handle anger. Stay out of my room, he said. I will. I'm locking my door from now on. Good idea. He blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. That's it? You're just going to say okay and leave? What do you want me to say? I want you to explain why you thought it was acceptable to. It wasn't. I cut him off. There's no explanation that makes it acceptable. It won't happen again. I turned to leave before he could say anything else. Made it 3 steps before his voice stopped me. Were you outside my door last night? After you left, I didn't turn around. No, you're lying. Yeah, I said. I am. I walked back to my room, closed the door, and stood there with my forehead pressed against the wood. Elian lost everything because of me. Not directly. I never touched him. Never even met him during his time at Belmar. But the foundation I funded collapsed, the scholarships disappeared, and students like him paid the price. And now I'd crawled into his bed like the predator. He's right, I said to the empty room. He should hate me. The worst part was that I agreed with him completely, and it still didn't stop me from wanting to go back to his bed.
Chapter 3 Alliance Point of View. I didn't see Aster for 4 days after the kitchen conversation. He stayed in his room mostly, and I kept my door locked every night. The footsteps in the hallway stopped. Everything should have gone back to normal. On the 4th night, my phone lit up with a calendar notification. Birthday reminder, 3 days. My chest locked up immediately. The panic hit fast and brutal, stealing the air from my lungs until I was gasping against the headboard. Thunder cracked outside. Rain battered the windows. And suddenly I wasn't in my room anymore. I was in my car 2 years ago, with broken glass cutting into my hands and someone dragging me out into the rain. Something crashed. Maybe my water bottle. Maybe me. Then my door opened in seconds. Aster stood in the doorway, hair messy, still wearing that wine-colored sweater. His eyes went wide when he saw me. Elian, I couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. He crossed the room in 3 steps and dropped to his knees in front of me. Panic attack. I get them too. You're going to be okay, but I need you to breathe with me. His voice dropped lower, steadier. In through your nose. Count to 4. Watch me. It took 5 minutes before I could breathe normally. Aster stayed on the floor the entire time, counting out loud. When my hands finally stopped shaking, he sat back. Better? Yeah, my voice came out rough. How did you know what to do? I get them too. Haven't slept through a full night in 8 months. But when I'm near you, I can breathe. I don't know why. That's how I ended up in your bed. He looked away. I wasn't trying to scare you. I was trying to survive. The honesty in his voice hit me harder than it should have. I wrapped my arms around my knees and felt the old ache in my ribs where the scars were. My birthday is in 3 days, I said quietly. 2 years ago, my family told me choosing music over medical school was selfish. They threw me out that night. It was raining. I slept in my car with everything I owned in 2 suitcases. Aster went very still. Around midnight, someone broke the window, tried to drag me out. I fought back, but my voice cracked. I still have scars on my ribs from where they kicked me. I don't remember how I got away. All I recall is the rain and the blood and thinking nobody was coming to help me. Aster didn't say anything for a long moment. Then his hand moved carefully to my side, hovering over where the scars were beneath my shirt. I'm sorry that happened to you. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Our faces were close. Too close. I could see the exhaustion in his gray eyes, the way his hand trembled before he pulled it away. Stay, I whispered. He froze. What? I'm asking you to stay. I don't want to be alone tonight. You just had a panic attack. I know exactly what I'm asking. I grabbed his wrist. Stay. His eyes searched mine. Then he nodded and sat on the edge of the bed, careful to leave space between us. We lay there in the dark, not quite touching, listening to the rain. I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Just before sleep pulled me under, one thought cut through the exhaustion. What if everything they said about him was a lie?
Chapter 4, Aster's Point of View. He fell asleep against my chest, and I forgot how to move. Elian's breathing had finally evened out around 1 in the morning, his hand still twisted in my sweater. I'd meant to pull away, put distance between us like I'd promised, but I couldn't make myself leave. This is so stupid, I whispered to the ceiling. He shifted in his sleep, and suddenly his face was closer to my neck. My entire body went rigid. This was dangerous. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I wanted the exact opposite, and that terrified me more than anything the internet had ever said about me. Being near him stopped the panic attacks. But it was more than that. Every time I saw him in the residency, something in my chest pulled tight in a way that had nothing to do with panic and everything to do with the fact that he looked at me like I was dangerous and stayed in the same room anyway. He fit perfectly against my body. That was the problem. You need to leave, I told myself quietly. Before this gets worse, I didn't leave. Elian made a small sound in his sleep, and his fingers tightened in my sweater. I looked down at him and felt something crack open in my chest that I'd been keeping locked down for months. I'm so sorry, I whispered, for everything, for the scholarship you lost, for ending up here because of me, for making you afraid in your own home. He didn't hear me. He was asleep. Which was probably for the best, because if he'd been awake, I might have said more. Might have admitted that I'd noticed him the second I walked into this building and felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. That every time I heard him playing piano in the shared music room, I had to leave because listening to him made my chest hurt in ways I couldn't explain. The storm started to fade. The rain softened to a gentle patter against the windows, and at some point, without meaning to, I fell asleep. I woke up a few hours later to gray morning light filtering through the curtains. Elian was still asleep, his head on my shoulder, one hand resting against my chest. I should have moved, should have left before he woke up, and regretted asking me to stay. Instead, I closed my eyes and let myself have 5 more minutes. I want to stay with him, I murmured without thinking. Elian stirred, his eyes opened slowly, confused and still half asleep, and I realized with creeping horror that he'd heard me.
Chapter 5, Elian's Point of View. I woke up screaming on my 24th birthday. The nightmare dragged me back to the broken car window, and the hands pulling me into the rain. I jerked awake gasping, and Aster's hand closed around my wrist before I could process where I was. You're okay, he said, voice rough with sleep. It's just a dream. The moment his skin touched mine, something slammed into my head that wasn't my own thought. Don't pull him closer. If he stays this close, I'm finished. I froze. Aster was still talking, asking if I was okay, but his voice was suddenly in two places at once. Out loud, calm and concerned, and inside my head, raw and desperate. God, he smells incredible. Stop staring at his mouth. Don't scare him. Elian, his grip loosened. Are you hurt? I yanked my hand back. The voice in my head cut off immediately. I'm fine. My voice came out shaky.
Hi, viewers. What would you do if you could suddenly hear someone's thoughts? Let me know in the comments. I would love to know how well you enjoy listening to this story as well. I look forward to your
Aster sat back, giving me space. Outwardly, he looked perfectly controlled, but I just heard what was happening inside his head. Nightmare? He asked. Yeah, about the attack. It's your birthday today, he said it quietly. You want me to leave? No. I looked at him. Can you hand me that water bottle? He passed it to me. Our fingers brushed for half a second, and his thought hit me again. His pulse is still racing. Just help him breathe. Don't think about how close he is. Control yourself. I almost dropped the bottle. The rest of the morning was torture. Every accidental touch sent thoughts crashing into my head. Brushing past him in the kitchen, accepting coffee, sitting close on the couch. If he curls against me again, I'll lose my mind. When I shifted closer, his thoughts got louder. You okay? Aster asked. I'm fine, I lied. But I wasn't fine. Because every thought was laced with desperate restraint. Back up, you're making him nervous. Ask before touching him. Don't crowd him, over and over. This wasn't what a predator sounded like. By afternoon, I was exhausted. I ended up at the piano in the shared music room, trying to clear my head. I must have fallen asleep on the bench because I woke up to someone draping a blanket over my shoulders. Aster's hand brushed against me for just a second. His thought hit me again. He looks exhausted. Someone should have taken care of him sooner. I wish I could. The thought cut off when he pulled away. I sat there with my eyes closed, throat tight, and realized that thought had just broken something inside me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my phone and searched for the articles. Aster Dane, Belmoir scandal, manipulation, predatory behavior. Then I remembered what I'd heard in his head. Don't scare him. Ask before touching him. Someone should taken care of him sooner, Frina. I stared at my phone until the words blurred. What if they were all wrong about him?
Chapter 6, Aster's Point of View. A day later, my phone lit up with an email. Belmoir Foundation lawsuit update, Lauren Hale mentioned. The mug slipped from my hand, my chest locked up. I dropped to the floor. No, I tried to say, but nothing came out. Then Elian's voice cut through the panic. Ask. He crossed the room and dropped to his knees in front of me. Breathe with me. In, hold. Out. He grabbed my hand and counted out loud until the panic finally loosened. When I could breathe again, I pulled away. Sorry, I muttered. I'm fine. You're not fine. He sat back. What happened? I stared at the broke of the floor and made a decision. There is a lawsuit against me. The Belmoir scandal, I said, voice shaking. At that moment, I saw Elian's face change and his body tensed up. I didn't do anything, Elian. I'm innocent. My voice shook again, hoping he would believe. He went still. Okay. Laurent Hale was my mentor. He ran the foundation with me. I thought he cared about the students. I forced myself to keep talking. Then I found the messages. He was grooming Omega students, manipulating them. I tried to report him to the board. What happened? He found out and turned the truth around before I could expose him. He leaked fake photos and made me look like the predator instead. Elian's jaw tightened. Several students came to me, begged me not to drag them into the scandal publicly. They were terrified. My voice cracked. So I stayed silent, let Laurent destroy me to protect their names. The foundation collapsed anyway. The scholarships disappeared. Students like you lost everything, and I couldn't stop it. You protected them, Elian said quietly. I failed them. I failed you. I am a failure, Elian. I shook my head. Now they are bringing up a lawsuit. You're not a monster, I looked at him. How can you say that after everything I just told you? Because a monster wouldn't have sacrificed everything to protect people he didn't even know. My throat tightened. I didn't know what to say to that. Later that evening, we were in the living room. I stood by the window, staring out at the city lights. Elian walked over and touched my shoulder. I felt the warmth of his hand through my sweater and thought about how he'd stayed after I told him everything, how he hadn't run. Elian yanked his hand back suddenly, face flushing red. You okay? I asked. Yeah, I should go. He left before I could ask what was wrong. That night, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Someone had photographed Elian and me entering the building together. Posted it online. Disgraced composer Aster Dane spotted with young musician. Still preying on vulnerable artists? Within an hour, the residency manager emailed me. We need to talk. Emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Everything was falling apart again.
Chapter 7, Elian's Point of View. The emergency meeting happened at 9 in the morning, and by noon, everyone knew about the photo. I walked into the shared kitchen and the conversation stopped. Maya and two other residents went quiet, staring at me. Maya's phone showed the screenshot of Aster and me with that caption underneath. Elian, Maya said carefully, we're worried about you. That photo is everywhere. People are saying he's using you like those other students. He didn't use anyone. You can't actually believe that. I can believe whatever I want. Laurent Hale was the one manipulating students. Aster tried to stop him and got destroyed for it. How do you know that? Because he told me the truth I wanted to say. Because I've been hearing his thoughts and none of them sound like a monster. Because he told me, I said instead. Maya shook her head. The residency manager is meeting with the board today. Sponsors are threatening to pull funding if he stays. My stomach dropped. They can't do that. They can if they think he's a liability. I found Aster in his room sitting on his bed with his phone in his hands. He looked exhausted. How bad is it? I asked. Bad. The manager wants me gone by the end of the week. Says my presence is putting funding at risk. That's not fair. It's smart. I shouldn't have stayed this long. Where will you go? I'll figure something out. He wouldn't look at me. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. I don't care what the photo looked like. You should. People are going to assume things about you now. Your reputation will take a hit just from being seen with me. My life was already destroyed when Belmoir collapsed. I have nothing left to lose. He looked at me. Elian, I'm not afraid of you. And I'm not going to watch you run away because the internet decided to hate you again. I'm not running. I'm protecting you. From gossip, I survived worse. Thunder rumbled outside. He tensed at the sound. Storm's coming, I said quietly. You going to be okay? I'll manage. Or you could stop pretending and just stay with me tonight. His eyes went wide. What? You heard me. I'm tired of pretending we're not already doing this every night. Come to my room when the panic starts. I'm not asking. I turned to leave. And for the record, I don't think you're a monster. I think you're someone who got destroyed for doing the right thing. Later that night, the storm hit. Around midnight, footsteps stopped outside my door. Aster knocked quietly. I opened it. He stood there in that wine-colored sweater, looking like he was about to apologize. Come in, I said. We lay in the dark. This time, when I moved closer, he didn't pull away. His arm came around me carefully. I reached back and touched his hand. Heard his thought immediately. Please don't hate me. Please stay. I can survive anything except that. I fell asleep thinking about how wrong everyone was about him. The next morning, I woke up alone. I walked down the hall to check on him. His door was open, and there was a packed suitcase on the floor.
Chapter 8. Aster's Point of View. I left the suitcase where he would find it. Not because I wanted him to stop me, but because I owed him an explanation without having to say it out loud. The board meeting was tomorrow morning. The manager had been clear. Leave voluntarily, or they'd vote me out, and the sponsors would pull funding. Elian would lose his housing, everyone would, all because I'd been selfish enough to stay. I stood in his doorway at 6 in the morning, watching Elian sleep. He looked peaceful, like someone who didn't deserve to have his life destroyed twice by the same person. I grabbed my duffel bag and headed for the door. Thunder cracked outside. Rain started hammering the windows. Of course there was a storm. Of course my chest was already tightening. But I'd survived panic attacks before Elian, and I'd survived them after. I made it to the building's entrance before I heard footsteps behind me. Where are you going? I froze, turned around. Elian stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair messy from sleep, staring at me like I'd just betrayed him. Home, I said. You don't have a home. You told me that. Then somewhere else. In the middle of a storm, with a panic attack already starting, he stepped closer. I can see your hands shaking from here. I shoved my hands in my pockets. I'll manage. Why are you doing this? Because if I stay, you lose everything. The board votes tomorrow. The sponsors pull funding. This place shuts down, and you end up on the street with nowhere to go. My voice cracked. I'm not doing that to you. So you're just going to disappear? Without even saying goodbye? I left the suitcase where you'd see it. You would have figured it out. That's not the same as actually talking to me. His voice rose. You don't get to make this decision for me, Aster. This is my life too. Exactly, it's your life. And I've already ruined it once. You didn't ruin anything. The scandal destroyed your scholarship. You ended up here because of me. No, I ended up here because of Laurent Hale. You tried to stop him. And failed. You protected people. He was yelling now. You sacrificed everything to keep their names out of the media, and you're still paying for it. That doesn't make you a failure. That makes you, he stopped, took a breath. That makes me what? I asked quietly. Someone I don't want to lose. The words hit me harder than they should have. I looked at him standing there in the rain that was starting to blow in through the open door, and I realized something that made my chest hurt worse than any panic attack ever had. I loved him, and that was exactly why I had to leave. "I'm sorry," I said. I turned toward the door. His hand closed around my wrist. Chapter 9, Elian's Point of View. My hand wrapped around his wrist, and I refused to let go. "Let me go," Astor said, rain blowing through the door. "No." I pulled him back inside and shut the door. He stood there dripping, staring at me. "You need to let me leave. It's better this way." "Better for who?" I snapped. "For you. I stopped believing the internet about you a long time ago," I hissed. He went still. "What? You want to know why?" "Because predators don't think about consent every 5 seconds." His face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I can hear your thoughts, Astor, when we touch. I've been hearing them since my birthday." The duffel bag hit the floor. "How long?" "Since you grabbed my wrist during the nightmare. Every time we've touched, I've heard what you're really thinking." "Everything?" His voice cracked. "I heard you during the panic attack. I heard the truth about Laurent Hale before you said it. I heard every time you stopped yourself from getting too close. Every time you asked yourself if you had permission. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to hear the real you." I took his hand. "And what I heard was someone who's been alone so long, he forgot what it feels like to be wanted." He pulled back. "You had no right. You're right. But I'm not sorry, because it's how I know you're not the monster they said you were." He looked at me for a long time. "I love you. That's why I have to leave. You're not protecting me. You're abandoning me. It's not the same." "It is to me." Rain hammered the windows. Thunder rolled. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Stop running. Fight back. Stay." "If I stay, I'm done hiding. I'm finding the students willing to talk, gathering evidence, clearing my name. It could take months. Then do it. I'll help," I declared. "But the residency is kicking me out. I have nowhere to go." "We'll find somewhere. A cheap apartment together. You'd leave here for me? I'd leave anywhere for you." He closed the distance and kissed me. It was desperate and overwhelming. His instance framed my face. I grabbed his sweater and pulled him closer. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead against mine. "I'm scared." "Me too. What if I can't prove it? Then we'll still have each other." He kissed me again, softer, like a promise. We stayed in my room that night, rain outside, and for the first time in months, neither of us felt alone. Later, his hand rested against my chest. I touched his wrist, and his thoughts flowed through. He stayed. After everything, he stayed. Mine. Finally mine. I smiled. I heard that. He laughed quietly. "I'm going to have to get used to that." We moved out within a week. Found a tiny studio with bare walls and creaky floors, but it was ours. Astor started making calls, lawyers, the students he'd protected, asking if they were ready to speak. One said yes, then another, then 3 more. Evidence started building. I watched him work late into the night, surrounded by files. "This might take a while," he said one night. I wrapped my arms around him. "Good thing I'm not going anywhere." 3 months later, the first article dropped.
Chapter 10, Author's Point of View. The article went live at 6 in the morning, and Astor's phone didn't stop buzzing for 3 hours. Elian woke up to find him sitting on the edge of their bed, staring at the screen. The headline read, "Former Belmoir students break silence. Laurent Hale charged with exploitation." "Is it real?" Elian asked. Astor nodded. 5 students went on record. "Laurent's being swornly charged." "That's good, right?" "Yeah, it just feels quieter than I expected." And it was quiet. Over the next few weeks, more articles dropped. More students came forward. The narrative shifted. Astor Dane wasn't the predator. Laurent Hale was. The internet's hatred didn't disappear, but it softened, redirected, eventually faded into background noise. The residency manager called 2 months later with an apology and an offer for Astor to return. He declined. They'd already built something better in the cramped studio, with creaky floors and the second-hand keyboard. Belmoir quietly reinstated scholarships. Astor received job offers for composing, teaching, things he'd thought were gone forever. Elian got freelance piano gigs that paid better than before. They stayed in the studio apartment anyway. 3 months after the first article, Elian woke to thunder outside and reached across the bed, but Astor wasn't there. Panic flared for a second. Then he heard piano music. Astor sat at the keyboard in the dark, playing something soft. City lights caught his face, and he looked peaceful in a way Elian had never seen before. "You are awake," Astor said without turning. "Storm woke me up." Elian crossed the room. "You okay?" "Yeah, just finishing this. It's for you." Elian leaned against his shoulder and listened. The piece was beautiful and complicated, and sounded exactly like the way Elian felt when Astor looked at him. "What's it called?" Elian asked when the last note faded. "Haven't decided." Maybe something about finding home in unexpected places. That's too long for a title. Then you pick one. Thunder cracked outside. Rain hammered the windows. Aster didn't flinch. You're not panicking, Elian said quietly. No. Aster touched his face. Turns out storms aren't so bad when you're not facing them alone. Elian leaned into the touch and heard the thought. He stayed. After everything, he stayed. Forever, if he lets me. I heard that, Elian said, smiling. Good. Aster pulled him closer. I meant it. They stood in the dark with the rain outside, and Elian realized this was what healing looked like. Not dramatic or tied up with apologies from everyone who'd gotten it wrong. Just two people who'd been alone too long finally learning how to be together. I love you, Aster said. I know. I hear you think it 50 times a day, and you still haven't gotten tired of it. Not even close. Later, they ended up back in bed with the storm still going. Aster pulled Elian against his chest without hesitation, without fear, without wondering if he was allowed. Elian used to think survival meant learning how to be alone. Then he met the alpha who only knew how to sleep when he was beside him. And together they learned what it meant to finally come home. The end, if you've made it this far, drop a comment below. Have you ever been completely wrong about someone and discovered they were actually your person all along? Let me know your story and don't forget to subscribe.